Selma shows us that America's not the project of any one person. Because the single most powerful word in our democracy is the word we. We the people. We shall overcome. Yes, we can. That word is owned by no one. It belongs to everyone.
Wow. Welcome back to Hardball. That was, of course, President Obama speaking in Selma this weekend. Actually, on Saturday, the president and his family, along with former President George W. Bush, and nearly 100 members of Congress marched on that same streets and the same bridge where civil rights demonstrators were beaten bloodily by police 50 years ago in what became known as Bloody Sunday. Civil rights icon and Georgia Congressman John Lewis was in Selma 50 years ago, and he spoke about that day.
We were beaten, tear gas. Some of us was left bloody right here on this bridge. 17 of us were hospitalized that day. But we never became bitter or hostile. We kept believing that the truth we stood for would have the final say.
What a soulful man he is. Anyway, Selma, Alabama's current member of Congress, Representative Terry Sewell, is a Democrat from Alabama. She joins us now. Thank you, Congresswoman, for joining us. And, well, where are we now? You know, it's 50 years ago. That march had a lot to do with getting the Voting Rights Act of '65. So that on the books, not just in the amendments to the Constitution after the Civil War, but in the books, you have the right to vote. Back then, 2% of your that county, Dallas County, was registered to vote, the black people, just 2%. How's it going today in terms of registration and voting?
Well, Chris, thank you so much for having me on. This past weekend was an amazing testimony to the strength of the American fiber, because I think that even in a place like Selma, where we're now predominantly African-American, we're working on our second African-American mayor. I get to represent Selma and the Civil Rights District in Congress today. The real struggle for us right now is an economic struggle. But I have to tell you that I thought that the president's speech was really amazing, and I thought that his focus on making sure every American knew what took place on that bridge and how uniquely American that experience was.
What's it like to serve in Congress with Republicans who don't agree with you? And I know they agree in principle everybody has the right to vote, and yet in 36 states they're out there trying to make it very difficult to vote, to the point where they succeed when they pass laws that say to make it tougher to vote, just to vote.
Yes. Well, listen, I think that for me, Selma being my hometown, it was awesome to be able to welcome a bipartisan delegation of members of Congress. It's very tough, Chris, I won't lie, because, you know, I think that the partisan politics and the nature of it right now is so stifling to get any legislation done. But having an opportunity to come to Selma, to walk in the footsteps of John Lewis with John Lewis is truly transformational. And my hope is that all Americans will take serious the right to vote, and that we in Congress will go back renewed by by witnessing living history, that we will actually go back and restore the Voting Rights Amendment.
What do you make of what happened in Oklahoma at that frat house where I thought David Boren, the former governor, former U.S. Senator from that state, now the president of the University of Oklahoma, basically cracked a whip. I mean, this guy threw the fraternity off campus, said as long as he's the president of that university, we'll never get back at their fraternity house again. He condemned even casual conversations in which bad words are used, racist words. Here's a video of that fraternity and what the members were doing at the University of Oklahoma, chanting racial slurs, including the N-word. The video was posted on YouTube on Sunday. Here it is.
There'll never be there'll never be
you have to wonder what century those young people thought they were on, but they're paying the price. What you think of Boren? No BS here. He just went, cracked the whip and said, you're off camp. You're gone as a fraternity.
I think that what the incident that happened at the University of Oklahoma just shows us what the president was saying. There's a lot of unfinished business in America with respect to civil rights and voting rights. And I think that the president of the University of Oklahoma was right to crack the whip. I think that, you know, Selma is now. The lessons that we learned in Selma 50 years ago are as relevant today as they were 50 years ago. We understand that we must be ever vigilant in the fight for civil rights and in voting rights. Progress is elusive. Old battles become new again in a heartbeat. So we must be ever vigilant in our struggle to make sure that we all live up to the ideals of the Constitution, that all men are created equal.
Well, I hope you come back on the show a lot. Thanks for coming on. First time I met you, you're great. Thank you, Congresswoman Terry Sewell. Thanks for joining us. You represent Selma, Alabama. Up next, James Carville says that journalists are being fed the story on Hillary Clinton by the right wing. In other words, the New York Times is working off the right wing talking point.